Welcome to the most important week of the year for the podcast industry. Welcome to Podcast Movement 2025.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome. I'm Paul Riismandel. I'm the president of Signal Hill Insights. With me is Daryl Battaglia. What is your title, Daryl? Full title?
SVP of Measurement and Insights at Triton Digital.
So we're really pleased to be able to reveal to you today brand new U.S. podcast ranker that we produced together as part of the Triton Rankers. Daryl, why don't you get us started? Tell us a little bit more what we're going to learn.
Sounds good. Just like a quick little agenda. We've introduced a number of new reports to our public ranker reports that are available to anyone interested in the podcast space. So some of the things that we've added to our rankers are we now have a whole market ranking any podcast in the top 200 for unique audience, a combination of downloads and listeners. We have reported. We've added audience insights as far as like demographics and people's purchase intents to the rankers. So going beyond just which shows are the largest. And then also providing content category information, true crime or history shows, etc., and what their audience looks like. So lots of new insights available in order to help inform readers on our TritonRankers.com website is where you can find this information.
So Daryl, tell us, why do we have these podcast rankers anyway?
Yeah, so truthfully, rankers can be a little controversial at times because you're ranking like which is the biggest podcast and stuff like that. But really, it's a positive resource for the industry. It is free information and data that we're putting out there for the industry that you can read and use. We try and bring some more transparency to the advertisers that are buying advertising within podcasts. And we are trying to help promote the space, promote podcasting as a whole as it relates to other media types that people can advertise in, promote the participants in the ranker, and just demonstrate their scale and their relevance and their audience in different ways. So really becoming a free, transparent resource to help promote the industry. So we've had a ranker for the last 5 years. It has been focused on the IAB Tech Lab measurement specs. So it has been IAB downloads and listeners. We've ranked the top sales networks that participate, as well as the top 150 podcasts. But the nature of that ranker is in order to measure downloads, we need the log data for the downloads in order to provide that measurement. And so that's why it has always been opt-in. Publishers have to agree to participate in the ranker and make their information available to be measured in order to be reported in our ranker up until now. And I'll explain more about that. But that is a monthly download numbers that we are publishing and download rankings. That will continue, but we've added a lot of new things. This is still me, right? So a little bit more about what we've added. And this is on a quarterly release schedule. All of this is produced in collaboration with Signal Hill, who are great partners, really do high quality work. So we appreciate everything that you and the team have done to help produce all this data. So one is we have a representative survey in the market of the U.S. population. And via this survey, we count every podcast that someone says they listen to or watch in the last 30 days. So it is a full market, all-inclusive ranker. Joe Rogan, everyone knows, has been the biggest podcast for quite some time. But this is actually the biggest report that we've had yet in the industry, going down to the top 200 podcasts.
And may I underline that, Daryl? Up to now, in terms of a full market ranker, we've not had data in the industry past the top 50. So this is the first full market ranker, every podcast, every publisher ranking out all the way to the top 200. A little bit more representation in there, and I don't want that to get lost in the mix. So tell us a little bit more about some of the other things that are offered.
Sure. So we are producing lists of shows that reach particular types of audiences. And the whole intent is for that to be a resource to the buyers. So if you want to identify a preliminary list of shows that do a great job of reaching young women or high income or people who are expecting to travel for business in the near future, or people who exercise at a gym, there's a wide variety of different audience segments, and each lists 50 different shows that highly, we'll explain a little bit more about what an index means, but highly over-index for reaching that audience. This does, again, require publisher participation in order to be measured and included in that. And then the last piece is we're putting out category or genre level insights. So again, film and TV, comedy podcasts, news podcasts, sports podcasts. What percentage of the podcast audience listens to those podcasts? And who is their audience? And how does that compare across content categories or genres? And as I mentioned, we're going to keep the download rankings as well. So unique number of listeners and viewers is great to determine how many unique people you have listening, but downloads are a great measure of how much people are listening. How many episodes are they consuming? What's the volume of consumption? And so both have a place in reporting, which is why we've got a combination of metrics that we're using to highlight the top podcasts and so on and so forth.
So as Daryl mentioned, this is all powered by a nationally representative survey, Demos Plus, and that is something which we do. Surveys are our bread and butter at Signal Hill Insights. We're a research consultancy focused on audio. We are audio first, deep specialty there, and a deep specialty in particular in podcasts. So what we do is that we survey 6,000 Americans in order to do a calibration so that we know right off the top what can we expect and tune to know how many podcast consumers there are in the United States and learn more about them. So then we can direct another survey that we do all year long where we bring in 12,000 podcast consumers. And in that survey, we ask them about themselves, their consumer behaviors, their podcast consumption behavior, and that's critical, as well as everything they listened to in the last 30 days. That allows us to, one, get deep demographic insights into even individual shows working together with Triton Digital and their download data, but now has allowed us to come out with this first ever top 200 ranker.
Yeah, and I'll add a few more things. We asked, like, what platform do they primarily listen on? For each podcast, are they listening on video, audio, or a combination of the two? Are they new listeners to podcasts? Are they long-time listeners? Et cetera, et cetera. So there's a wide variety of insights we can get into podcast listening as a whole, but also through the Demos Plus solution that Signal Hill helps produce. We're able to get insights into podcasts of all different sizes and who their audience is and things like that.
And so what that allows us to do is to get into the top 200 podcasts with the highest reach in the United States. It's driven by this quarterly survey of 3,000 podcast consumers each quarter. So we're updating it every quarter. The data we've revealed this week is from the second quarter of this year. Each respondent lists those podcasts they've listened to in the last 30 days. And it is the only full market ranker of this type.
Is this me? Okay. So why top 200? And a little bit about why the long tail even matters greatly within podcasting. There are many different podcasts of many different types, appealing to many different audiences. That is what is great about podcasting, is it is so diverse as far as the amount of content that is available. And generally, there's a thought in advertising, and even in podcasting, that if you just advertise in the biggest properties, that you'll be able to reach all the audience you need. People think, oh, it's like an 80-20 rule, and that is not the case in podcasting. It really is diverse. The big podcasts are big. They do reach a big audience, but they only in total reach 49% of monthly podcast listeners. So that, I'm sure, compared to other media types, if you pick the biggest properties, it would be a lot higher. You can't only advertise in the biggest podcasts and reach everyone that you need to reach. And it's just an interesting contrast. If you were to completely exclude the top 50 podcasts and only advertise in all the podcasts from 51 plus, those actually reach many more people, reach 84% of all monthly podcast listeners. So, I think this is a really good stat. Shout out to Jeff from Signal.
I mean, this is what happens when we have this amount of data, when we're collecting 12,000 responses about podcast consumption every year, and we've been working together going on 5 years now. We can go in and we can search out these sorts of insights and really answer these questions that we get all the time. Is it sufficient to go to the top shows? And if you're looking for reach, the answer is no, it's not sufficient. And we all know the power of that long tail in podcasting, the power of niche, and also the fact that even at the top podcasts do not reach audiences in the same way like, say, the top movie does on a weekend reach the number of moviegoers. Podcasts are a very different medium, and it's good to see the data confirm what I think we always kind of knew, is that it's important to reach out into that longer tail.
Absolutely.
So let's look at the top 20 here. So this is the top of the chart. And the basic thing I want to point out here is that you will see on this chart, you'll see shows that are really born audio, right? Started out as audio, still probably have the bulk of their consumption in audio. Say we have The Daily at number 2, or we have Crime Junkie at number 3. Then we have shows now that are kind of more balanced out in audio and video consumption, and we're capturing that. So you have Call Her Daddy at number 4. As you go down the list, you see at number 12 now, right? And maybe we might see this show be a little higher next quarter. We have New Heights with Jason and Travis Kelce, right? That show is kind of born audio and video. And because we're able to capture both audio and video consumption in the entire top 200, they show up there at number 12. And then, of course, we're now getting past the top 20. We're getting past the top 50. And you see now we're in top 51 all the way up and going beyond. So again, allowing us to dive more deeply into the diversity of podcasting and get a little better sense of just the breadth of content and audiences that are being served through podcasting.
And I think it's, yes, you have some big celebrity names on this list, but you also have shows that were started from the ground up as audio first podcasts, and they've built an audience over time. And now you see them, in the tops of the ranks. So there's definitely both examples within the podcast space.
Absolutely. And so when we break it out to top 200, right, we get more representation. So an interesting thing that popped out to us immediately when we put together this chart is now we see Spanish language podcasts coming up, and maybe didn't kind of get the attention that they did before, where we see shows like at number 122, Relatos de la Noche. Very popular show, gets into mythology, it kind of little true crime adjacent, also has that kind of historical bent, fascinating show, and now it helps to get surfaced here because we're taking it beyond the top 50.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in with a little stat here that I'd presented at Evolutions. In the United States, Hispanic or Latino population is around 19% of the U.S. population. What we've seen amongst podcast listeners overall, it's a little bit higher. It's around 20%. What we're seeing from new podcast listeners that have come to podcasting in the last year is it's at 25% of those new podcast listeners are of a Hispanic or Latino background. So this is a big opportunity and one that I think you'll continue to see grow.
Huge growth area. Another category that jumped out once we started expanding past the top 50, faith and spirituality, another actually growing category. So you see at 175, Pastor Rick's Daily Hope, Joel Osteen there at 189, pretty well-known personality. And then 191, this is a perennial favorite. This show has been around a very long time.
It's the OG podcast.
It is an OG podcast, The Bible in a Year, but it continues to be popular, and you can see there it now ranks within the top 200. It also allows us to capture more of the rising stars. It takes a lot of listeners to break into that top 10 or top 20. But now we see the rising stars of 2025, shows that debuted this year. At number 70, probably a show many of you heard of. It's been probably the big success story of new shows in 2025, and that's Good Hang with Amy Poehler. But then we also see Chloe in Wonderland at number 180 there, as well as The Best People with Nicole Wallace at number 148.
Yeah, we produce also like a year-end report. There's a few of them out around here. And so we highlight like what are the top new shows that appeared within the year. And we do that at the end of the year. I'm a big Chloe fan personally. I don't know about you. Yeah, so I think this is me. Moving into category level data, content categories or genres. There's two things that we report on the Triton Rankers website. One is reach by genre. So this is based on number of unique listeners / viewers, combination of the two. What percentage of monthly podcast listeners listen to that genre? And you can see there's not one that dominates. Clearly comedy has the biggest number there, less than half still. And there you can see there's like a really diverse set of content types. Each, that has a significant audience, a significant percentage of the podcast listeners that are listening to it. And I'm sure that will shift over time.
And I want to draw your attention to number 2 there, news. So again, in putting together this report, one of the things we discovered is that news has actually hit an all-time high in terms of its reach among podcast consumers there, reaching a little over 27%. That was an insight. I wrote a blog post about it. It did get covered in Podcast News Daily this week, as well as in the Sounds Profitable newsletter, because by digging into this, when we see this kind of stuff, we found another fascinating story that I'm going to invite you to go read about. How's that for a tease?
Nice teaser. So, Paul, what's an index?
An index. So this is a way for us to understand how certain audiences and segments are represented or overrepresented in an audience. That audience can be a podcast audience. It could be a genre level audience. And so when we say something over-indexed, that means that there's more people percentage-wise from that particular audience segment in that, say, podcast audience than there is in the overall podcast audience. So these are expressed as a number, 0 going forward. If it's a 100, that means that podcast's audience or segment, let's say women, exactly matches the percentage of women in the overall podcast audience. So we would say that, it's just equal. Once we go over 100, now it over-indexes. So a podcast that says has an index of 150 for moms means that as a percentage, there's 50% more moms in that podcast audience than in the overall podcast audience. And so it's a shorthand and easy way of thinking like, hey, we want to target moms. Let's look for those podcasts that over-index for moms. And as we'll show, it kind of helps you maybe get out of some boxes and think outside the box on how you can reach really key audience members.
So the second part of the category or genre level insights are those indices against different audiences. And there's 40 plus of them, but I've highlighted a few here and just listed 2 of the genres, comedy and news. And you can see that they appeal to different audiences. Both of them, so comedy is younger. News is a little bit older. You can see with the 18 to 34 and the 55 plus age groups, both over-indexed for being male as opposed to female. News does really well with high income with investable assets of 250K plus. And then moving into like purchase or shopping behaviors, you'll see news over indexing for in-person shopping, comedy over indexing for online shopping, news over indexing for life insurance, people who are in the market to buy life insurance at the moment, whereas people who are intending to switch wireless providers in the next 6 months over index more for comedy.
And one thing I want to point out here, you're seeing a screenshot of the tool that's available to you right now. So it's the first time that there's been an interactive free tool that anyone can go out and mine podcast data and figure out where is the audience I'm looking for, or how does the category that I'm thinking about index and represent and reach audiences.
So the thing is, like, yes, these are genre level insights. Not every podcast within a genre are the same. They don't all appeal to the same audience. So these are broad strokes, but when you dive into it, there are a lot of differences within a genre. Not everyone is the same, and we'll highlight that a little bit as well.
So some podcasts buck that trend. So you just heard it a moment ago, Daryl said, look, comedy tends to over-index for men, meaning that men are more likely to listen to comedy, more so even than just in the overall, than they're represented in the overall podcast audience. However, this doesn't mean women don't like comedy. And so what we can help to do is surface those comedy shows that over-index for women, whether it's something like Dear Chelsea, Sisterhood, or Smosh Reads Reddit Stories. These are all podcasts that have more women in their audience than the overall podcast audience has for women. Again, looking at news, you heard Daryl tell you a moment ago that news actually over-indexes for people who shop at brick and mortar, who go to department stores, go to retail. Does that mean it's a bad play for online retail? No, because these shows like Bill Handel On Demand or the Bloomberg Daybreak, they over-index for people who shop online. And it helps to get out of that box. You think, okay, genres are monolithic, right? And it's easy to be in that thinking, but in fact, they're actually prismatic. And the tool is designed to help you get at that prism of shows.
And as Paul mentioned, this is an interactive tool as well. And for this particular portion, what we're really hoping is that we'll generate advertising buyer interest, planners and buyers at ad agencies and advertisers, to use this as a starting point to get a preliminary list of shows they can consider that reach the audience that they're trying to reach with a campaign. It is a starting point. There's a lot of data behind this. It goes a lot deeper than just the biggest shows. But we're hoping to generate that interest, that buying interest within podcasting and help get them started. So for instance, you can use the tool and you can filter to an audience like moms, and you can get a list of 50 shows that highly over-index for reaching moms. You can filter that back further to a particular network, a particular genre. However you want to use the tool in order to create that list, you can do that. Similarly, she does another example, people in the market to buy a car or truck. Same thing, you can use the tool, you can toggle to or select that audience characteristic, and you can get a list of 50 shows that highly over-index for auto intenders if there is a advertiser or agency that is looking to do an automotive campaign, for instance. So really trying to bring in those brands into podcasting more and more. You can also use combinations of characteristics. So an example here is a luxury boutique is running a campaign. They want to reach not only people who shop at luxury boutiques, they might also want to reach people that are high income, 100K plus household income. So in that example, you can use both of them. It will produce a list of shows that over-index for either one. You can see which one they over-index for. You can see which one's over-index for both. And get that list too. So there's a lot of flexibility in how you want to use this tool. You can use multiple audience characteristics if you want. And then lastly, like, you could not select the filter for the audience characteristic. You can see all of the ones we report and For each show, it will list those characteristics that not just over-index, but highly over-index for that characteristic. This is amongst the top 300 shows that we measure downloads for, but certainly we hope participation continues to grow and new shows will be able to get in there. And like I said, there's a lot more data behind this. So to that point, just wrapping up, yes, there's a lot more data behind this. So the goal is to use that data to go beyond the top 300 shows in the industry, that buyers will request more information for your full roster of shows or a show that is beyond just the top shows and request that data. There's numbers behind this. We're not reporting the numbers on the public website, but there's percentages. What percentage of your audience falls within a particular audience characteristic? There's the number of downloads and listeners. There's an index against either the average podcast listener, but also against the average American, just in general, not just podcast listeners, to show where you over-index for. And you can create a group of shows that you want to sell together. You can package them together, shows that reach a certain type of audience, and you can make that package available programmatically within the ad tech stack in order to monetize against that.
I mean, the key here, right, is we gather all this data. We want to make it available. We want to make it available to move podcasting forward. Part of that is helping buyers understand who they can reach and how they're going to reach them in a publicly available tool. But as well, if you are a producer or you just want to, and you're looking at where should we go? What if we're going into comedy, if we're going into these different genres, what do we know about this audience? What do we know about sub-audiences? So we can make sure that we're maybe marketing right or we're figuring out our audience right, things like that. And as well, if you have your show in the database and in the ranker, you can learn more about your own audience, right? The whole point is to take this out and to give it to you, and it's open and free, but you can go in there and you can play with it. And that's what I encourage you to do, is to go select some categories, select some audience qualities, and see what comes up. And you might be surprised in what you learn.
Yeah, so again, TritonRankers.com. We have rankers in a handful of different countries and regions. This one, though, really is the most advanced yet. So if you click on US, toggle between the different reports, feel free to interact with that, have some fun with it. I'm not sure if we have time for any.
We probably have time for one question.
I just want to say thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thursday morning, early morning. You guys are the diehards. Family and friends here in particular, thank you guys so much. So really appreciate you guys being here. Any questions?
Well, look, we'll be here right now, so we're not running away. Really appreciate you taking the time today. Hope you check it out.
Thank you.
Sorry, Will. Oh, we have a question. Okay, sorry, didn't mean to.
My question is Signal Hill versus Triton Rankers and Triton Digital.
Yeah, so Triton measures downloads. We reached out to Signal Hill and worked with them and collaborated with them on creating a solution called Demos Plus, which uses a combination of a representative survey plus download data in order to model demographics and purchase intents for podcasts of all sizes. So Signal Hill is managing the survey and the modeling of those audience insights, but all of it is reported through the Triton user interface and public ranker.
Triton Rankers.
Yeah.
Those screenshots were Triton Rankers.
Yeah,
that's correct.
And so basically, peanut butter, chocolate, that's a Reese's peanut butter cup.
Yeah, but it's all reported through the Triton interfaces. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you again.